There's a moment in every caterpillar's life when the world goes black inside its cocoon. This creature literally dissolves. Its body breaks down into an unrecognizable soup of cells, a complete destruction of everything it once was. Scientists call this process histolysis. I call it the ultimate act of courage. You're sitting here today, breathing, existing, perhaps feeling solid in who you are. But what if I told you that your greatest transformation requires the same process, a complete dissolution of everything you believe defines you? 3 years ago in a remote cabin in Montana, I witnessed a man deliberately erase himself, not through any dramatic gesture, but through the quiet act of walking away from a 7-figure corporate position, his penthouse apartment, and even his own name. The world called him insane. Today, he runs a sustainable energy company that's revolutionizing power access in developing nations. The key? He had to become unrecognizable to himself first. This isn't about changing your hair color or moving to a new city. This is about the courage to dissolve your current identity, your limitations, your fears, your comfortable patterns, until nothing remains except pure potential. It's about understanding that your greatest obstacle isn't failure. It's the identity you've built around your past successes. Think about water for a moment. In its liquid form, it's confined by its container. But when it transforms into vapor, it becomes boundless, uncontainable, free to rise and travel across continents. Your current identity is that container. Your habits, your reputation, your carefully crafted personal brand, they're all walls containing your true potential. The market leaders of tomorrow won't be the ones who simply improved. They'll be the ones who dared to become unrecognizable. In an age where artificial intelligence can replicate any pattern, your only competitive advantage is your capacity for radical reinvention. What they don't tell you about transformation is not about adding more to who you are. It's about systematic subtraction. It's about having the courage to strip away everything that isn't essentially you until you become an enigma, even to yourself. The path we're about to explore isn't for everyone. Some will call it extreme. Others will label it unnecessary. But for those who feel that quietly persistent calling, that whisper telling them they're capable of something far beyond their current existence, this message is your wake-up call. In the next few moments, we'll delve into the art of strategic disappearance, the science of identity reconstruction, and the powerful principles that govern total transformation. You'll learn why becoming unrecognizable isn't just an option in today's rapidly evolving world. It's a necessity for survival and extraordinary success. The question isn't whether you're capable of such transformation. The question is, are you willing to dissolve everything you think you are to become everything you're meant to be? In the vast expanse of the Sahara Desert, where the horizon melts into an endless sea of sand, I met a woman who had mastered the art of invisibility, not the kind found in fantasy novels, but something far more powerful, the ability to disappear from her own limiting beliefs. Ava Henderson wasn't always a desert ultramarathon champion. 10 years ago, she was trapped in a cycle of mediocrity, surrounded by voices telling her what she could and couldn't achieve. She was visible then. Visible as the accountant who played it safe, visible as the person everyone had figured out, labeled, and filed away in their minds. Her capabilities were neatly boxed and categorized by others' expectations. What fascination happened? She discovered that true power lies in becoming visible to those expectations. One morning, without announcement or fanfare, she stopped being available to every mundane request. She became selectively invisible to the constant demands that drained her energy. Her phone went silent. Her social media went dark. To the outside world, she seemed to fade away, like a mirage in the desert heat. This isn't about hiding. This is about the profound power of strategic invisibility. When you remove yourself from the constant radar of others' expectations, something remarkable happens. You gain the freedom to reconstruct yourself without the weight of public opinion. Every great invention, every revolutionary idea, every world-changing innovation was first conceived in invisibility. The Wright brothers didn't develop flight in the town square. They chose the isolation of Kitty Hawk. Einstein didn't formulate relativity in a crowded cafe. He found clarity in the solitude of a patent office. Ava's transformation began with small acts of disappearance. She carved out 2 hours before dawn, hours invisible to the world, where she trained in complete solitude. No social media updates, no sharing of progress, no seeking validation. In this invisibility, she found her truth. The desert taught her its secrets. In the emptiness, where nothing exists to distract or define you, you're forced to confront your essence. The dunes don't care about your past achievements or failures. They demand only one thing: your true capacity. After 18 months of invisible training, Ava emerged to compete in the Marathon des Sables, the toughest foot race on Earth. 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara. But here's the crucial point: she didn't emerge as an improved version of her old self. She was unrecognizable. The power of her transformation lay not in what she added, but in what she removed. She stripped away the layers of identity that society had painted on her. The careful accountant, the reliable friend who never took risks, the person everyone thought they knew, all dissolved in the desert heat. This is the hidden power of invisibility. When you become invisible to the world's constant judgments and expectations, you gain the freedom to rewrite your own story. You're no longer performing for an audience. You're no longer seeking approval or validation. You're operating in a space of pure potential. A caterpillar doesn't transform into a butterfly in the open. It does so within the privacy of its cocoon. Your cocoon is your period of strategic invisibility. It's the space where you shed the skin of your former self without explanation or apology. Ava's story isn't about running. It's about the courage to disappear from everything and everyone that holds you in a fixed identity. It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to become temporarily invisible to the world's expectations. In your own life, where are you too visible? Where are you performing instead of transforming? What parts of your identity have become a prison rather than a platform for growth? The world will always try to make you visible in ways that serve its needs rather than your growth. It will try to define you, to categorize you, to keep you predictable and manageable. Your power lies in your ability to slip through these definitions, to become invisible to these expectations. The most profound transformations happen in darkness. The seed transforms beneath the soil. The galaxy forms in the depths of space. Your greatest evolution will happen when you have the courage to disappear from the identity that no longer serves your highest potential. This is the first step in becoming unrecognizable, embracing the power of strategic invisibility, not as an escape, but as a cocoon where your true self can emerge, unfettered by the world's limited vision of who you are and what you can become. The desert runner understood this truth. Sometimes you must disappear completely to find who you truly are. Close your eyes for a moment and recognize that familiar weight, the weight of others' understanding of who you are. Their compliments, their expectations, their well-meaning advice, all based on a version of you that no longer fits. Like golden handcuffs, recognition can become the most beautiful prison ever built. You've heard the whispers, haven't you? Stay in your lane. Don't rock the boat. You're good at what you do. These aren't just comments, they're chains. Every compliment based on who you've been becomes a subtle command to remain unchanged. Every award for past performance becomes a contract to maintain the status quo. Your current identity, the one everyone recognizes and applauds, might be your greatest liability. It's not your failures that hold you back. It's your successes. The very achievements that brought you recognition have become the anchors preventing your next evolution. Think about the master artists who deliberately switched styles at the peak of their success. Think about the entrepreneurs who walked away from profitable businesses to start again from scratch. They understood a crucial secret: comfort is the enemy of greatness. But let's be brutally honest. This isn't about moderate change. This is about systematic destruction of your comfort zone. It's about deliberately making yourself uncomfortable in ways that make others uncomfortable just watching you. I recently witnessed a top surgeon walk away from a prestigious position to study quantum computing. His colleagues called it a midlife crisis. His family staged an intervention, but he understood something they didn't. That true growth requires you to break not just out of your comfort zone, but out of your expertise zone. The most dangerous comfort zone isn't failure. It's competence. When you're good at something, really good, the world conspires to keep you there. It offers you better pay, higher status, more recognition. The golden handcuffs get tighter, more comfortable, more difficult to notice. The more recognition you receive for who you are, the harder it becomes to transform into who you could be. Every person who knows you, who respects you, who counts on you becomes an unconscious anchor holding you to your past self. Breaking these chains requires more than courage. It requires the willingness to disappoint people who believe in you. It requires the strength to step away from applause. It means choosing temporary incompetence over permanent competence. Your comfort zone isn't just about what you do. It's about who you believe you are. It's your self-image, your habits, your patterns of thinking. Breaking free requires systematic destruction of these patterns. Start with your daily routine. If you're a morning person, force yourself to work late. If you're organized, experiment with controlled chaos. If you're known for your reliability, become selectively unreliable to obligations that no longer serve your growth. This isn't reckless abandonment. It's strategic destruction. Like a demolition expert, you must know exactly which supports to remove and in what order. Your goal isn't to create chaos. It's to create space. Space for new possibilities. Space for reinvention. The world will resist. It will try to push you back into your familiar shape. Remember? This resistance is a sign you're on the right path. If everyone understands what you're doing, you're not pushing hard enough. Transform your relationship with recognition. Let go of the need to be understood. Embrace the power of being misunderstood. When people say, "I don't recognize you anymore," take it as the highest compliment. Your greatest breakthroughs will come not from building upon who you are, but from having the courage to break free from who you've been. Every chain of recognition you break creates space for a new capability to emerge. The time has come to break these beautiful chains, to step away from the warmth of recognition into the cold uncertainty of reinvention, to become not just different but unrecognizable. Remember, the caterpillar doesn't transform by adding wings to its existing structure. It breaks down completely to rebuild itself anew. Your transformation demands nothing less. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of Mount Kailash, where the air is thin and wisdom runs deep, I encountered a story that changed my understanding of transformation forever. This isn't a tale from ancient scrolls. It happened just 4 years ago, though few know of it. James Chen was a Silicon Valley prodigy, the architect behind some of the world's most used social media algorithms. His code shaped how billions of people connected, shared, and thought. He had everything society deemed valuable: influence, wealth, recognition. Yet he felt hollow, trapped in a prison of his own success. Then one day, he vanished. Not in a dramatic way that makes headlines. No, his disappearance was calculated, precise, what I now call strategic disappearance. He didn't delete his accounts or make bold announcements. Instead, he became digitally invisible through a series of subtle, deliberate actions that made him increasingly irrelevant to the algorithms he once created. For 3 years, he lived in a remote monastery, not as a monk seeking enlightenment, but as a student of disappearance. What he learned there forms the foundation of strategic transformation. Principles so powerful, they can completely reshape your reality. The first principle he discovered was what the monks called the shadow effect. In the monastery's ancient courtyard, he noticed how shadows didn't fight for existence. They simply emerged in the absence of light. True transformation, he learned, doesn't come from forcing change, but from creating spaces where change becomes inevitable. When you announce your intentions to transform, you create resistance. The world rushes to remind you of who you've been. But when you strategically disappear from certain aspects of your life, you create a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. In that space, new possibilities naturally emerge. The second principle was selective silence. The monks taught him that transformation isn't about changing everything at once. It's about identifying the core patterns that define your current identity and systematically silencing them one by one. James began with his digital presence. He didn't post about his journey or share his insights. Instead, he learned to find power in being unknown. He discovered that when you stop explaining yourself to others, you create space to reinvent yourself for yourself. But here's where it gets interesting. The monastery had a unique practice. Every 3 months, they would rearrange every object in their living spaces. This led James to understand the third principle, pattern disruption. Change wasn't just about big decisions. It was about systematically disrupting every pattern that anchored you to your old identity. Your current identity is maintained by thousands of tiny habits and patterns. The route you take to work, the time you wake up, the words you use, the way you respond to challenges. True transformation requires disrupting these patterns so completely that your old self becomes impossible to maintain. The fourth principle emerged from an unexpected source, the monastery's ancient stone walls. James noticed how these walls didn't fight the mountain's elements. Instead, they incorporated them using the very forces that could destroy them to make them stronger. This became adaptive resistance, the understanding that opposition to your transformation can become fuel for it. When his former colleagues found him and tried to pull him back to his old life, he didn't resist. Instead, he used their pressure as motivation to dive deeper into his transformation. Every attempt to remind him of who he was became a catalyst for becoming someone new. The monks had a saying, "The eagle that soars highest builds its nest in emptiness." This became the fifth principle, strategic emptiness. James learned that true transformation requires creating empty spaces in your life, periods of time and areas of existence where you deliberately maintain nothingness. These empty spaces serve as incubators for your new identity. Like a painter needs a blank canvas, you need blank spaces in your life where new possibilities can emerge. This isn't about meditation or reflection. It's about strategic emptiness that forces new patterns to emerge. The final and most powerful principle James discovered was identity fluidity. The monks taught him that trying to create a new fixed identity was just building another prison. True power came from developing the ability to flow between identities to become adaptable at your core. When James finally emerged from the monastery, he didn't return to technology as everyone expected. Instead, he founded a school that teaches disconnection, the art of strategic disappearance. But here's the crucial point. He didn't trade one fixed identity for another. He learned to exist in a state of constant transformation. Today, James maintains what he calls calculated visibility. He's present in the world, but not bound by it. His influence is felt but never fixed. He's mastered the art of being simultaneously present and ungraspable. This isn't just a story about one man's transformation. It's a blueprint for strategic disappearance. Every principle, the shadow effect, selective silence, pattern disruption, adaptive resistance, strategic emptiness, and identity fluidity, is a tool you can use to engineer your own disappearance and subsequent transformation. Remember, the most powerful transformations aren't announced, they're engineered in silence. Your goal isn't to show the world how you're changing. Your goal is to become so transformed that your old identity becomes impossible to maintain. The mountain monk's greatest lesson was this. True power lies not in being seen, but in choosing when and how to be invisible. In the raw silence of starting over, there's a moment of pure potential that most people never experience. They live their entire lives adding layers, more skills, more achievements, more identities. But true transformation begins only when you dare to subtract everything, to stand naked in the face of your own potential. Zero is not empty. Zero is pregnant with possibility. A master pianist who deliberately forgets everything they know about music. Imagine the freedom in those fingers that once knew exactly where to go, now free to discover new melodies, new patterns, new expressions. This is the power of zero. Not as an end, but as a beginning. I've watched people cling to their achievements like drowning men clutching driftwood. Their past successes become anchors, weighing them down in the ocean of possibility. They don't realize that sometimes you have to sink to find solid ground. Your rebuilding process begins with a fundamental question. If you lost everything that defines you today, your career, your reputation, your skills, what would you build first? Not what others expect you to rebuild. Not what seems practical, but what calls to the deepest part of you. This is where internal revolution begins. In that space between who you were and who you're becoming, there's a moment of pure choice. Most people rush through this moment desperate to become someone, anyone, rather than sit with the discomfort of being no one. The discomfort is the crucible. It's the forge where your new identity is born. Every moment of uncertainty, every flutter of doubt, every surge of panic about who you are, these are the contractions bringing your new self into existence. The rebuilding process has its own rhythm, its own timeline. You cannot rush a seed into becoming a tree, but you can create the conditions for explosive growth. Start with your mental architecture. Question every belief, every assumption, every I am statement you've ever made about yourself. What if everything you believe about your capabilities is based on who you were, not who you could be? What if your sense of what's possible is built on outdated evidence? These questions are not philosophical exercises. They're demolition charges placed at the foundation of your old identity. Rebuilding isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming different. Better implies a linear progression. Different implies a quantum leap. You're not trying to build a better version of your old self. You're building someone entirely new. The internal revolution begins in your language. Stop saying, I'm trying to change. Start saying, I am becoming. The first is an effort. The second is an emergence. Notice how different these feel in your body. One strains, the other flows. Your old habits will try to reassert themselves. This is natural. Think of them as echoes of your former self, growing fainter with each passing day. Each time you respond differently to an old trigger, you're not just changing a habit, you're rewiring your very essence. The world will try to rush your rebuild. It will offer you shortcuts back to who you were. It will tempt you with opportunities that fit your old self perfectly. This is the ultimate test, the ability to say no to good options that don't serve your transformation. In this rebuilding phase, uncertainty becomes your compass. If you're certain about something, it's probably part of your old identity trying to reassert itself. True transformation lives in the questions, not the answers. Create new measurements for your life. If you measured success by money, measure it by impact. If you measured progress by speed, measure it by depth. If you measured worth by recognition, measure it by innovation. New metrics create new motivations, and new motivations create new behaviors. The internal revolution isn't a single moment. It's a continuous choice to remain in flux, to resist the temptation to solidify too quickly into a new fixed identity. Think of yourself as water learning to take new forms rather than clay hardening to a new shape. This rebuilding process demands something few are willing to give, the death of certainty. The comfort of knowing who you are must be sacrificed for the thrill of discovering who you might become. You're not fixing what's broken. You're not improving what exists. You're creating something that has never existed before. This is art, not maintenance. This is revolution, not evolution. The 0 point is not your enemy. It's not rock bottom. It's ground zero for the most important creation of your life. The new you. Embrace it, explore it. Let it teach you its secrets. In this emptiness, in this void of who you were, lies the raw material of who you might become. The internal revolution has begun. The rebuilding process is underway. Picture success, stripped of its usual trappings. No corner office, no applause, no external validation. What remains is something far more potent, the power of being completely unrecognizable to those who once thought they knew your limits. True success is not about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about becoming so fundamentally different that your old goals seem like child's play. Like a butterfly that no longer measures success by how fast it can crawl, your transformation demands new metrics of achievement. I witnessed this kind of transformation in an artist who abandoned her successful gallery career just as she was becoming recognized. The art world was mystified. Critics called it career suicide. Where she understood something profound. Her recognition had become a cage, forcing her to create what others expected rather than what her evolution demanded. 3 years later, she emerged with something entirely new, not paintings, not sculptures, but temporary installations that existed only in specific moments of natural light. Her success wasn't measured in sales or reviews, but in the way she transformed how people experienced time itself. She became unrecognizable, not just in her work, but in her definition of achievement. This is the paradox of unrecognizable success. The moment you break free from traditional metrics of achievement, you access levels of success that traditional thinking can't even comprehend. It's like trying to measure the ocean with a ruler. The tool itself becomes absurd. Your purpose isn't something you find. It's something you become. Every time you shed an old identity, you align more closely with your true purpose. Think of purpose not as a destination, but as a frequency you tune into. The more you transform, the clearer the signal becomes. Every major breakthrough in human history came from someone who became unrecognizable to their peers. Einstein, the patent clerk, becoming Einstein, the revolutionary. The Wright brothers transforming from bicycle mechanics to aviation pioneers. Their success wasn't an extension of who they were. It was a complete reimagining of what was possible. What they don't tell you about this kind of success, it often looks like failure in the middle stages. When you're becoming unrecognizable, you'll go through periods where you don't fit any known category. You'll be too different to be understood by your old world, but not yet established in your new one. This is where most people retreat. They mistake the chrysalis stage for failure. They don't realize that this period of being undefined is actually the birthplace of their most significant achievements. Alignment with purpose comes not from adding more goals, but from removing everything that isn't aligned with your core truth. It's a subtractive process. Success becomes not about what you can achieve, but about what you're willing to abandon. The world is full of people achieving goals that belong to their old selves. They're climbing ladders with impressive speed, never realizing they're leaning against the wrong wall. Unrecognizable success demands that you question not just how you achieve, but what you're achieving and why. Your transformation will create ripples. Some people will be inspired by your courage to transform. Others will feel threatened by it. Both reactions are reflections of their relationship with their own potential, not yours. The highest form of success is becoming a living question mark in the minds of those who thought they had you figured out. When they say, "I don't understand what you're doing anymore," take it as confirmation that you're on the right path. Your new success metrics should make others uncomfortable. If everyone understands your goals, they're probably too small. If everyone approves of your methods, you're probably not transforming deeply enough. This isn't about being different for difference's sake. It's about becoming so aligned with your truth that you naturally become unrecognizable to those operating under old paradigms. Like a quantum particle that can exist in multiple states, your success becomes impossible to pin down by conventional measures. Where caterpillar's DNA already contains the butterfly's blueprint, your highest potential already exists within you. Success isn't about reaching external markers. It's about removing everything that prevents your true nature from expressing itself. Let your achievements be side effects of your transformation, not its purpose. When you focus on becoming unrecognizable to your old limitations, success becomes not a goal, but a natural byproduct of your evolution. This is the ultimate achievement, not to reach a destination, but to become so transformed that your very presence opens new possibilities for others. Your unrecognizable success becomes a permission slip for others to pursue their own transformations. Welcome to a new paradigm achievement. One where success is measured not by how far you've climbed, but by how completely you've reimagined what's possible. Throughout this evening, we've explored the art of becoming unrecognizable. But now, in these final moments, let's confront the most powerful truth. The phoenix doesn't choose whether to burn. It only chooses when change will come, transformation will demand its price. The only choice you have is whether to embrace the fire on your terms or wait until circumstances force you into the flames. Look around you. In every industry, in every field, the comfortable middle ground is vanishing. Those who cling to their old identities are becoming relics, while those who dare to transform are becoming legends. The time for incremental change is past. The time for careful steps has ended. Your next chapter demands not evolution, but revolution, not growth, but metamorphosis. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, you'll have a choice. You can continue the comfortable dance of gradual improvement, or you can step into the fire of total transformation. You can remain recognizable, safe, predictable, or you can become a living revolution. The world doesn't need another success story. It needs impossible stories. It needs people who dare to dissolve their identities and emerge as something entirely new. It needs you, not the you that everyone knows, but the you that's waiting to be born. Remember the desert runner who disappeared from her old life. Remember the mountain monk who abandoned digital fame. Remember the artist who walked away from recognition. They weren't running from something. They were burning towards something greater. Your transformation isn't just about you. Every time someone dares to become unrecognizable, they crack open the ceiling of what others believe possible. Your courage to transform becomes a beacon for others trapped in their own limitations. Total transformation is not a choice between life and death. It's a choice between different kinds of life. A life of slow compromise, or a life of perpetual renewal. A life of meeting expectations, or a life of shattering them. Don't make plans. Don't make resolutions. Don't promise yourself gradual change. Instead, choose your fire. Choose where you'll burn away the identity that no longer serves you. Choose what you'll sacrifice to become unrecognizable. The world will try to keep you recognizable. It will offer you comfort, security, and the warm blanket of familiarity, but you've glimpsed something greater, the possibility of complete transformation. You've seen the power of becoming unrecognizable. The fire is waiting. The transformation is ready. The only question is, are you brave enough to become impossible to recognize? Your cocoon awaits, your desert calls, your mountain beckons. The time for transformation is now. Eyes burn, transform, become unrecognizable. The world is waiting for the impossible you.